Welcome to the Patriot Perspective. My name is Gregory Lykov, and I'm joined here with Ofer Dar.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to August 24th edition of the Patriot Perspective. I'm very happy to be here with you, Gregory.
Yeah, and a hello to our new friends here. We know we have a little bit of a bigger audience after this weekend. We had a few articles published in the Gateway Pundit where we did get some base from there over. So today is a interesting day, unfortunately, because 2 years ago was actually the day where Donald Trump was sent into Georgia to take a mugshot and be processed by uh, uh, a prosecution attorney there for a crime that he allegedly, according to the Georgia uh, DA at that time, committed. So he, along with many others, including Rudy Giuliani, who else was there?
There were like so many people, I think two
Peter
dozen
no
like
Nerva
co-conspirators.
Peter
Yeah,
Nerva
Navarro, yeah.
Navarro, yeah. There
Mhm.
were dozens of people there, and all of it was fake. Okay. And this was one of the lowest points of our country, was when our country was the closest it was to a banana republic. And that just happened 2 years ago. I just want to share my screen and just show a very interesting picture of all of this. Let me just share my screen quickly to this. So this is a picture, this is a tweet that I posted, reposted by a few big accounts, including Brandon Straka and the Gateway Pundit. But this really sums it up. So we see here, obviously, Mr. Trump. This is Brandon, who got arrested for a misdemeanor of trespassing on Capitol grounds because, according to the prosecutors at that time, you weren't allowed to record on the Capitol, which doesn't make sense to me. Obviously, this is Mr. Giuliani. This is Steve Bannon. Roger Stone is over here, who got arrested much earlier. And, these are all of the other culprits, according to Georgia state law. So, Ofer, what are your
Yeah.
thoughts? We have made it so far to here after 2 years of agony, having so much weaponization of our justice system. What are your thoughts of, all of this happening just 2 years ago today?
Yeah, well, it's been a while, and you could see how far we've come when it comes to the usurpation of power and the way in which now that sort of political meddling, the utilization of the Department of Justice or local DAs to go after political opponents, it's been completely halted now that Trump's in power. And now the Democrats are going to try to flip the tables and try to claim that the Republicans are doing the same thing, lest we forget that they've been doing the exact same thing for decades, but especially over the past 4 years during the Biden administration, it was so egregious. I mean, Trump himself, he had those four major cases, with the Georgia one being the mugshot that you showed over there, where he was arraigned, and that was like related to the 2020 election and like the racketeering charges. So those obviously got thrown out, and it's so funny what happened with the DA over there, Fani Willis, like the entire corruption scheme with her and her husband. Like that was so embarrassing, and it just exemplifies how poorly run the entire hit piece and hit job against Trump was. But that's one of four, remember. There's three other ones. You had the one in NYC, the hush money, that was also completely pathetic with like the felony charges added
Over,
on.
just to remind me, what is it? Can you,
Yeah,
can
yeah.
you tell me? I don't know if you can, but what is the exact charge that Trump was charged for in that case?
It was I'm not even understanding like how it was enhanced to felony. Wasn't it
Yeah.
like falsifying business records or something?
Well, let me tell you something very interesting. The
Yeah,
exact charge that he was charged for was a crime that no other person was ever in history
yeah.
charged for. He was charged with a misdemeanor that was brought up to a felony
Mm.
that was tried by the federal that was filed by the federal DOJ, and after the DOJ said that we have no case, then Alvin Bragg, the corrupt district attorney of Manhattan, decided to pick it up. I mean, this was insanity. I mean, you can criticize Trump, and you can say that his whatever other New York case, which was just also swept away, his $500 million fine by Judge Engoron, who actually lives in the exact same town as I live in today.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you can say that he was a douchebag, whatever all of that case is. And you could say like they had some backing like behind those cases. It was a victimless crime, but yes, I do believe that Trump committed the crime that every other businessman in the entire world commits. But the $500 million fine was ingreguous or whatever that word is, and the Court of Appeals just agreed with that. But
Yeah.
when we have a felony like the hush money trial, that was just completely crazy. That was insanity. There was no backing behind that. Um, but we have to remember that that was just the big one. We also had cases before this, like the E.G. Carroll case, which
Yeah.
was very under the covers, but that was also a ridiculous case. That was also a ridiculous case where Trump got charged for something that didn't even make sense, and he got found liable for sexual assault, even though the judge even
Yeah.
said that there was no, I mean, not the judge, the jury even said that there was no sexual assault being conducted.
It
So
was civil court, by the way, so
it was
it's
civil
not
court,
that
yes.
important. Yeah.
Yes, and it was also a long time ago. That's why they couldn't do it
Mhm.
in the uh what is it called?
Like there was a statute of limitations on it.
Statute of limitations. The
Yeah.
statute of limitations was passed, but he still got charged millions of dollars for defamation. I think it was like 90 million or some crazy amount of like that uh, by E. Jean Carroll, who just to go over that case, claimed that Donald Trump um, uh, acted inappropriately with her in a dressing room at a department store in the center of New York City.
Mm.
All of this while Donald Trump was probably the most famous man in New York City. So it's a little bit confusing how Donald Trump would be going unnoticed into a department store and go into a dressing room with someone else unnoticed. I mean, it's a little bit surprising. I don't know. Maybe it happened, maybe it didn't. I'm not going to say anything. I don't want to be sued. But the whole entire point is that this entire agenda of political persecution and weaponization of our justice system is long before the 2020 election, before January 6th. But Ofer, what are your thoughts on some of the biggest cases like Rudy Giuliani's or even Roger Stone's or Steve Bannon's?
Yeah, well, the huge ones would be the federal ones, and those would be at the discretion of Jack Smith, the special counsel. And
Should be
that's the
arrested.
yeah, absolutely pathetic. And we'll get to what is going on now with him because it's also a pretty big deal, and he's pretty much crying about it. And I have no tears for him. But the thing is, there are two like big cases in association with him. So you have the stolen documents that they call them, like the documents from the National Archive that they wanted returned, but Trump held on to some of them in Mar-a-Lago. And then there was the raid, I think, in 2022. So he opened up a case about that, but now it's terminated, of course. And there was the other one in relation to January 6th, essentially like obstruction and him trying to use like the fake slate of electors to try to like overturn the election and everything. So again, another one of these politically motivated hatch jobs that was also terminated. So in association with those ones and also the two local ones, and this is a big issue. Jack Smith was operating in collaboration with the DAs, which is not something that's respected as a
Yeah,
norm.
according to the Hatch Act, it's not allowed. That's a whole entire
Yeah.
thing that's going out now.
Exactly. So that's a violation of the Hatch Act. The fact that as a federal employee, he was acting in a politically motivated way. So now he's getting investigated for that. That's completely legitimate. Hatch Act, it's been used against a lot of people. I think even Kellyanne Conway, like they accused her of using it at some
I,
point.
I, I think so too, yeah. And
Yeah.
we also see that the district attorneys who Jack Smith was allegedly coercing with, so Alvin Bragg, Letitia James, just some of the biggest ones that we know of, they are even more corrupt than Jack Smith is. I mean, my favorite example for Letitia James is obviously the fact that she ran on a platform to get Trump. That was her campaign. That was the
Yeah.
whole thing she promised. So when you have a district attorney that runs on a platform to get Trump, and when that is happening in a democratic or democracy, so-called democracy in the United States, I mean, there's some serious issues here. We shouldn't be having attorney generals running on a platform to get someone at all because that was done at a time when Letitia James had no basis for saying that Donald Trump ever committed a crime. That was just complete, BS that she spewed out. We also saw her on The View.
Mhm.
I don't know if you saw the video of her on The View before the case even started with Donald Trump, basically
Oh yeah,
promising
yeah.
that he's going to be in jail. I mean, it's ridiculous, but
Hmm.
we can focus on her a little bit later in the show, but let's first talk about Rudy Giuliani, who was really swept under the bus in all of this, and who really deserves some closure in what happened to him, because he, in my perspective, had the worst out of it all, out of all of these people.
Well, remind me which case he was indicted in. Was it the federal one or was it the Fulton one in
I
Georgia?
believe I believe it was the Fulton one, and that is
Hmm.
where he was. That was where he was charged with the two Georgia electors. Claimed that he was defaming them, all of that crap. So please,
Hmm.
please, just to give you a little bit more of a rundown of the case, just to jog your memory with it, he got charged with a fine. I'm pretty sure it was around $400 million, more than he probably
Wow.
ever saw in his life. The reason the fine was that high was because the two Georgia electors claimed that he was defaming them and that the two Georgia election ballot counters, I believe they were. That's what they were.
Or poll watchers, maybe. I don't
Poll
know.
watchers, I believe, yeah, one of those two. They said that they'll never be able to get a job again, because of his defamatory language, which is obviously not true when they are employed
Mhm.
currently. Well, actually, I don't know. Well, they have enough money never to be employed again. But the
Mhm.
whole entire point is that they claimed that the $400 million fine was for their income for the rest of their life. So please tell me why a Georgia poll watcher is making $400 million. I have never heard of that in my life. I mean, that is just the most ridiculous
Yeah,
thing.
what?
The US
Okay,
government,
like 2 million,
the US
maybe
government, yeah,
your
maybe 2
life.
million. The US
Hmm.
government wouldn't even charge $10 million or pay another government $10 million
Hmm.
to get a US citizen back. Yet these two Georgia electors who claim to suffer emotionally from their tragic defamation by Rudy Giuliani. They claim that, oh, they're owed $400 million. I mean, that's obviously, an inconsistency. So, um, and to that, I point to the Constitution, because the Constitution does promise everyone by the Fifth, Sixth, and Seventh Amendments to have a fair trial. They do promise a fair justice, a fair jury, an impartial jury, a impartial judge, according to the Constitution. They never promise, though, a fair punishment. In Obviously, the Eighth Amendment technically prevents cruel and unusual punishment.
Yeah, yeah.
But they never fully define what it is. It is up to the jury's discretion and up to the judge's discretion to decide what that fair fine is. And that's why he was charged so much. But
Mm.
that's why also Donald Trump was charged an insane amount in the New York case. So all of this is kind of adding up. But to kind of transition a little bit into Steve Bannon, because I think what he went through was also ridiculous. Just to remind you again, first he was charged for apparently scamming the American public in his border scheme, saying that whatever the funds he collected were going to the border, and then the justice system claimed that those funds were never going to the border. He was charged with that, never prosecuted. It was thrown out immediately. But what he ended up actually being found guilty of
Mm.
was ignoring a subpoena to a January 6th uh, committee hearing by Congress. So my first question is that if Steve Bannon, who used to be Trump's top advisor in the White House, if he was subpoenaed into the Congress, obviously he is prevented. The Fifth Amendment prevents him from actually incriminating himself or sharing anything confidential that went on in the White House. So how would he be subpoenaed in the first place to the House Committee on the January 6th committee for the records of his conversations with Donald Trump? That's what I don't understand. Maybe you could uh, give me a little bit of a rundown of that.
Feel like they were just trying to bait as many people as possible during that time period. The January 6th committee now it doesn't exist anymore. It was closed, obviously, when Mike Johnson came in. and all of the results are also just null and void. It was absolutely pathetic what they did, bringing in all of the most radical Democrats and then just one Republican, Liz Cheney, including her in this, to make it seem as if it's balanced, right? Because, obviously she doesn't have a grudge against Donald Trump. So from the get-go, it was biased. And then they send out all these subpoenas to Alex Jones and to all these other people to try to get them there. And one them to go after them in more serious ways. And yeah, that's actually interesting because Alex Jones, he also had a massive fine against him, in the Sandy Hook trial, where the families sued him for what he said about the course of the shooting over there and how they were crisis actors. And then the fine that he got was over $1 billion. And to this day, they're auctioning off his business. So you talk about bloated fines for certain damages, like emotional damages and economic damages. That's also a limit for what counts as being cruel or unusual over $1 billion and having all of your assets seized. That's also an interesting question, regardless of how bad what he said really was.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's also really interesting.
Yeah, I also think that what Alex Jones actually did, though, in that case, in the entire Sandy Hook case, maybe it wasn't his intention, I don't know, but the result was terrible. The result was that people were
Yeah,
going
really bad.
to, Sandy Hook family victims and, protesting the shooting. I mean, it was disgusting. So, it unfortunately, I think that Alex Jones really ruined his entire reputation from there. I can't even talk. I can't say anything good about him anymore because of that. But in general, we see that there's a common trend of people being prosecuted or being charged with either ridiculous fines or even in the case of January 6th, a lot of people were charged with a misdemeanor of trespassing and they were put on 3 years of probation or some other ridiculous
Yeah.
fine. Like, what if I trespass into my neighbor's yard? Do you think I'm gonna get 3 years of probation? Obviously not. And that's my issue with it. That happened to Brandon Straka, and that's going on still today. There's still a lot of people who haven't faced justice, and that's the big reason why Trump had to commute a lot of the January 6th um, rioters or whatever you want to call them, protesters. Look, I January 6th in general obviously was not as bad as anyone made it seem. Look at the tapes. You're gonna start laughing if you call, that a riot or whatever. But to all the violent offenders, there is no supporting them. But there's a lot of supporting the people who got innocently convicted of crimes that either they actually committed but got the highest possible sentence for those crimes. And that's what
Yeah.
I really don't like. But to transition a little bit to our favorite attorney or attorney general for New York as a state, Letitia James. She's a wonderful, truly wonderful hero in our city here today, especially with Alvin Bragg. But Ofer, why don't you give me a rundown of exactly what's going on with her and why she currently is claiming that Trump is weaponizing the justice system against her?
Well, it's so embarrassing what she did. And there are at least three separate time periods in which she did it, which is just insane because it establishes a pattern of behavior as if she thinks she can get away with it and she has for her entire life without expecting accountability. And now she's being hit with it for the first time. And instead of taking it with the chin held high up, she's just claiming that it's a political malignment and persecution against her for being this fierce warrior of the people, public advocate, which is just completely against everything she's done. She's such a horrible attorney general. She's one of the most embarrassing in the state's history, honestly. But yeah, even in the 80s when that was, I think, in 84 or 82 or something like that. She and her dad registered as husband and wife when
Yeah.
buying that property or renting it out. I don't remember. And that was in order to secure more favorable loan opportunities from the banks. So you could see how that's actually reminding me of what Ilhan Omar did when she registered to marry with her brother in order to get better certifications for citizenship and immigration and all that. But in any case, there's also in a situation where she had 5 rooms and then she lied about the fact that she had 4 rooms or something of the sorts.
Yeah.
And then as a result, she was able to get certain low interest loans that were had better credit and such. And so that's another way in which you just very slyly change details and expected that nobody would like look through it in detail, and as a result took advantage of the system that many other people that aren't as privileged as her also use on a daily basis, and they try to get loans. And it's, it's a zero-sum game to a certain degree. Like you take it and somebody else doesn't have the opportunity in many cases. And then there's also, I believe, another recent one. So she's always been like doing this, and now that the DOJ is actually opening it up, I'm very excited to see that the tables have turned on her. She deserves it for her behavior, not just because of what she did to Trump, but actually because she is a horrible role model for like an elected official. So just talk about the most recent case because I don't recall what it was about, but yeah, it's just horrible all around.
Yeah, well, you summed it up great, and I think the most important part here is that the crime that she committed is not significant. Mortgage fraud in this case is not
Yeah.
like a life-threatening thing. She shouldn't be sent to jail for 30 years. The big deal here, well, she should be sent somewhere for 30 years outside of here, but the big thing that I find with her is that she is attorney general, so her job is to prosecute crimes. So if she committed even a tiny, tiny crime, it's a much bigger deal for her to commit it than, let's say, a businessman
Yeah.
or someone else. Same thing as, let's say, the president. I don't know, the president looks and cheats, not cheats, but looks into someone else's, like the other party's files. It's a much bigger deal if the president does that than, I don't know, some random city council member. So I'm trying to allude to Watergate, if you can. So obviously that's why this matters so much. And the entire agenda, the entire thing that she actually done this multiple times and she denies it, she denies ever doing it. That's also a big deal. But in general, I would be very opposed actually to prosecuting people unless there's an actual case against her. I don't believe in prosecution, like political prosecution. I think that
Yeah.
Trump, even if he did commit the whatever the fraud that allegedly he committed, which I do believe he actually committed in the Engoron case, which again was a victimless crime that really every other businessman commits. Um, I don't believe we should be going after that. Like we shouldn't be wasting our resources on that. But I hope, and it looks like they're actually going to build up a case against Letitia James, and it looks like she did actually commit significant mortgage fraud, which is going to be interesting. Just to give you a little bit more of a rundown, again, you alluded to it. The whole entire thing with her having four apartments instead, I mean, her having five apartments instead of four matters a lot because basically that's the differentiation between a commercial property or a
Oh,
property that is like just renting out space, like let's say in my garage or something. So it's a very big deal to that it makes a difference. And she did that multiple times. It wasn't just one time, and she still has that actually. She still is doing that currently. So that's the big deal there. And that obviously gave her a much easier time in creating loans and mortgages in general. So it's very interesting to point to that, and we have to understand that that crime, again, it's very small, but it's very similar to what Trump was prosecuted for, and the fact that he was prosecuted for trying to get
mm.
lower loans or lower bank rates for his properties by lying about or allegedly lying about the total income or worth
The valuation, right? I
yeah,
think.
valuation,
Yeah.
which turned out to be OBS because they valued Mar-a-Lago at $18 million. dollars.
Yeah, what? What?
So I don't know. I want to talk to those. If I could buy Mar-a-Lago for $18 million, dollars, I think I will find many investors that were willing to invest in me for $18 million. dollars. But that's
There's another other like big thing that James did. She had that property in Virginia, Norfolk, Virginia,
yes.
right? And
Yes.
she listed it as her primary residence, and I don't think she can even do that as
That's
an
the
elected
biggest. That's
official.
what I was getting to.
Yeah, yeah.
That's by far the biggest case out of all of this.
Mm,
The same thing happened with Adam Smith, where Adam Smith listed his property, I believe it was in Oregon or Maryland, one of them. I don't remember which one.
interesting. Mm.
But he listed his property outside of California, and the same thing happened here, which is obviously for a lower mortgage rate. But that is a huge deal because it basically means that she cannot be the current Attorney General of New York. She is not allowed to be if she does not live or reside in New York. So that is a real case against her, and that is a
Mm.
huge deal because it's not only fraud, but it basically means that you have in the last like everything you have done in the last I don't know how many years she was in power, 4 years, uh, is void, and that is what Trump is going after. That is what really matters. And the same exact thing for Adam Smith. Adam Smith did exactly the same thing, and I'm sure many other congressmen and women did the same thing too. But if this is actually like prosecuted, if the DOJ indicts them for this, this will be revolutionary because the question is like whether anything Letitia James actually did in the last, I don't know, 4 years of her um, attorney general, like if any of that counts. So that is a very big deal. Um, but what are your thoughts in general of that specific, you know, situation?
Yeah, it's so crazy because she knew she did that while she was speaking on The View. Like you talked about that interview. He's talking about she's going after Donald Trump. And you can't do that. You can't run on targeting somebody before you even know if they're innocent or guilty. Like you're the cat's out of the bag already. Like you're not even hiding like how partisan you are. And in the back of her mind, like subconsciously, she knows that she did like also certain crimes and did it consistently for so many years. And then the one where she listed the primary residence in Virginia, that's the worst one. It's disrespectful to the residents in New York, actually. The fact that she's like building up these properties elsewhere, she wants to spend time over there potentially. She views New York as lesser in a certain way, like psychologically, if you're even willing to do that. So yeah, I hope that she gets what she deserves, and if the DOJ goes through with it, then they're probably gonna succeed, and hopefully she suffers like serious consequences for that.
Yeah, and look, Trump did not do anything like this, nor neither did anyone else. But like, it would be fine if she like actually primary lived in like Virginia, but registered as her primary residence in New York City. That would be a different story. That would actually be okay, and a lot of people do that. But the fact that she registered her primary residence as both in New York and both in Virginia, it's a huge concern. It will like this is a big deal, and it goes against the fundamentals of like everything, like all election law. So I'm very interested to see. I mean, New York obviously has very different election law than Virginia does, and Virginia has very different election law than California does. So it matters a lot. This is significant. But yeah, just aside from that, what do you think is going to happen? Like from all of this, do you think that Letitia James is actually going to be ever held behind bars or anything? I don't want to get too excited, but anything like that.
I don't know if she'll be held behind bars. I mean, for mortgage fraud, especially like
That's
things that are
yeah,
older, I don't know. It's a bit out there, you know.
yeah,
There's not a precedent for like that level of, and it's always dragged out, right? Like it's gonna take years for it to play out, and
of
she's
course.
already 66 years old, I think.
Yeah, I mean, of course. I mean, but I'm very interested to see where it's coming. And Letitia James is not making it any better. She's still running on a campaign to get Trump, and it's just not it like so unfortunate. And the thing is that the entire New York Democratic Party endorses her. We have people like Kathy Hochul who kisses up to her, everything like that. So
Yeah.
this is not just Letitia James. This is every single other Democrat there who believes Letitia James is a genuine Democrat who has a genuine interest for the New York people. So it's disgusting. I hope Pam Bondi and her entire team investigate this very thoroughly. Now to move on to our final, interesting topic is the fact that we have good news to bring. So in the redistricting, Representative Al Green has finally gotten fired, which means that his district ceases to exist anymore. It's District
Wow.
9 in California, not
Is
California, Texas.
Texas, yeah.
Yeah, and it will now be powered by Republicans. So, Ofer, what are your thoughts on this? What can you tell me about the impact this will have on the Democrat Party as a whole?
Well, Al Green's so old, like he should just accept that he should retire and that's it. Because I remember him from when I was like really small and like I would see C-SPAN and he would be on there complaining about something. Like that's what he's known for. He's known for filing articles of impeachment against Trump every single time that he has an opportunity to do so. He even introduced it after the Iran strikes, if you recall. And
Yep.
he's been doing it since the Russia Gate hoax. He was the one that introduced articles of impeachment. He did it. when there was the Ukraine Gate scandal in 2018, 2019, didn't after January 6th. So like he's just continuously been trying to find ways to target Trump, and I think he's now like in his mid 70s. Like I don't know how he doesn't get tired. He's like a perennial representative. It's
Well, have
his
you heard
entire
him in
life.
Congress on March 3rd,
Yeah.
2025? He looked pretty damn tired to me.
Yeah, like he's like rotting from the outside at this point. Like he should just give up. Like he's not useful. He's not furthering anything that benefits his constituents. I'm happy that he got redistricted out. He deserves it, honestly.
Yeah, he has not done anything. I can't think of anything he has done that was efficient.
Yeah.
And just for, just for reference, how he responded to the redistricting was by calling it racist. And uh, this is very interesting because actually, through my research, I uncovered that in 1991, Democrats, when they had control of the House Senate in Texas, which is very, very surprising. I don't know how that happened, but they did. In 2020, I mean, 1991, they
Mm.
redistrict Texas's maps to the point where it was so bad that the Supreme Court had to stop them and say that it was actually racially motivated in Bush v. Vera, and that sets a precedent still to today. It's one of the biggest redistricting cases ever, and that
Mm.
shows how bad racial redistricting is because they were basically just separating the districts based off race, and they were proven to by the Supreme Court. So it's pretty crazy that he calls this racially motivated. And just for reference, Texas has a very valid point for why they are redistricting. That's an important part because they're redistricting because the census count in the past 4 years was rigged. I don't know if Ofer, if you want to go into that, but
Yeah.
here, this is your
Mm.
opportunity.
Yeah, it's because the census happens every 10 years. So then in 2020 they had it, and they don't distinguish between whether you're a permanent legal resident, which is important. It's one classification, whether you're a citizen or whether you're an illegal immigrant. They don't ask that, and that's always going to inflate the numbers, and it's going to do so more in states where there are more immigrants, in areas where there are more immigrants, illegal immigrants specifically, and then certain electoral vote counts are increased. For instance, in California or New York, the electoral vote counts can increase and the amount of districts they have can increase. And nobody will even know whether the full breadth of the constituency are actually valid voters, can actually vote and participate in the elections. And so now there's some sort of like rectification process going on. I would just redo the census entirely. I would just have a new one held right now
That's
and
what
ask.
Trump's trying to do. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's why there's a case right now going on about it, right? To ask whether like it's legitimate to have that question involved. Yeah,
Yeah,
like
this is very interesting because you bring up a good point. But the most important thing to understand is that the census count is meant to indistinguishably count U.S. Residents. Even if you are permanent resident, you are purposefully counted in the
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
census because you're still represented by the government, even if you're a
Mhm.
permanent legal resident. However, the question is whether you're illegal if you're not supposed to be in the country. That's
Yeah.
different. And in my opinion, I mean, it doesn't make sense to me that you would be counted because you were not supposed to be in the country. You are supposed to be removed. Therefore, why would you be counted? So, but I have a question. Was the push by liberal cities, especially like New York and Los Angeles? Obviously, it happened later after 2020. But do you think the push to have sanctuary cities in the United States was, motivated to an extent by having a census and by counting illegal immigrants and, increasing their electoral votes?
Yeah, I mean, they wanted to create a culture where there was no way to even determine who is legal and who is illegal. And that started off by saying, oh, we need this so they can report crimes to us. That was the excuse. So then, like, somebody wouldn't be scared to go to like a police station and report a crime because let's say they did have to report their immigration status, maybe then they'd get deported by ICE. So that was the initial justification. But now it's morphed into something that includes everything, every single facet of everyday life, whether you're going to receive healthcare, whether you're in the education system, whether you're getting asked in the census. Like now, there's just no way to determine who's illegal and who isn't.
Yeah.
The water has been so muddied, and it's all a part of a ploy to eventually like have them enmeshed into society to such a degree that you can't ever take them out. That's the ultimate goal. And yeah, they want mass amnesty. They want to use them as voters. That's also very clear.
Yeah, the most important thing in my perspective is that we need to get the federal government to start issuing free IDs to all of the United States citizens. If you want an ID, you get one, because that is how you prevent significant illegal immigrants from either voting or anything like that. Because right now, if you don't need to show your ID, which in many states you don't, then uh, then you can vote without having one. And to be honest, I believe that having to show your ID when you vote, even though that's logical, I would actually not support a, federal order to have that. And the reasoning for that is that it would be a limitation of voters because the truth is that you're not given a free ID. You have to pay for it. That is against the Constitution. You're basically making it's like a poll tax, basically, which is a very valid argument. The way you go about that, though, is by just issuing free IDs to all U.S. citizens.
Yeah.
It should
Yeah.
all it should be done. I mean, they don't cost the United States government a lot of money. It's the whatever 30 cents. So that
Yeah.
should be done. Donald Trump should be focused on that. And that is how you exactly, go around the entire issue of having illegal immigrants or people who aren't supposed to be voting. Another thing that I should mention is that in Texas, when I was speaking with Ken Paxton's team, in Texas, a huge issue is that people are being paid to vote for candidates. So let's say they're not voting in an election, they're not voting in like a presidential election, a congressional election, and then they start voting in a random district, I don't know, council member election. So they're being paid, and that's a big issue that happens all around the United States. And there's really no way we can track it unless we have adequate attorney generals to or district attorneys to, prosecute it. But yeah, those are kind of in my opinion, the biggest issues with having like this
Yeah.
voting thing.
There's actually another, like on a similar note, in Georgia, in their Senate elections and also the gubernatorial elections, there was this entire phenomenon where Stacey Abrams would send in her workers to give food to the people waiting in line. And it was so funny because they would have like the stickers for her campaign on the water bottles and on the food, and then they give them to the voters. And like they're calling it like humanitarian work, but we all know what she's doing. She's trying to bribe
And
people by
in
giving them
most
food.
states now they're trying to prosecute against that because of MAGA
Yeah.
hats. That Georgia, I'm pretty sure, was the
Mm,
same exact state where that forbade someone from wearing a MAGA hat to a election voting polling place, but they let this crap. So it's a big issue.
yeah.
It's not like a made up issue. It happens everywhere, and people are being swayed by that. That's like the real concern. And obviously, politicians who are in power don't want to talk about this because they're in power. Why would they? Why would they talk about election fraud? It doesn't affect them. So it's very good we have like Republicans discussing it, like Ken Paxton. So
Mm,
I think this is going to be it for the Patriot Perspective for the
yeah.
24th. Thank you guys for joining us, and we're excited to see you later this week. Oh, for any final words?
Yeah, likewise. Thank you guys for the massive increase in support. We've seen it today, especially, and we've been seeing it for the past month.
And
So
tomorrow
massive
we'll
shout
see
out to
it
the
too.
Gateway Pundit. Yeah, and to all
Yeah,
the viewers and readers from
yeah.
there.
Thank you guys. Thank you guys so much.